Good afternoon, dear student. Program class brings you very important lesson today. So today, dear student, we are going to talk about poetry. I'm going to talk about poetry. Poetry. Sometimes students, when they listen to poetry, when they hear people talking poetry, they fear they fear so much about poetry. They say it is very difficult. But simply the reason is because poetry has been not introduced to them when they are young. But today I want you to share with you poetry and what are the terms, basic terms used in poetry. This will guide you. I will show you really when you are asked any question. It will not be difficult for you because you understand the key terms, the basic terms in poetry. Dear student, let me start from poetry. What is poetry? People wonder what is poetry, okay? And it is just easy to explain what it is not than what it is. But poetry, the word poetry, remember, is one of the forms or genres of literature. Student, let me remind you, we have three main genres of literature. Okay, you remember? We have prose, we have poetry, and we have drama. So poetry is among of those three genres of literature. Okay? And then, dear student, poetry as one of the forms or genres of literature exists in two forms. It is oral and it is written. So there is oral poetry and it is written poetry. Okay? And then poetry uses rhythm. Okay? Uses rhythm and deals rhythm and create what is called the sound, which is sweet in ears, which is sweet to listen. Because okay, there is a beat, and after beat creates rhythm, and the rhythm creates just melody. A melody makes the poetry being sweet to listen to. Dear student, poetry is composed in verse. It means poetry is written in verse form. Okay, in verse form. A verse means one line. Verse means line. Okay, and also it is written in a verse and organized in stanzas. Okay, stanzas. Like prose, we know that prose is written in continuous sentences and organized into paragraphs. It means for poetry, it is written in verse, in lines, and organized in stanzas. Okay? So this is what we call poetry. Poetry is one of form or genres of literature, which is exists into two forms, subforms, I mean, which is oral and written. And poetry is expressed just it creates, okay, it uses repetition, which creates beats, and the beats create rhythm, and rhythm create melody, and melody make the poetry sweet to listen to. And again, it is written in a verse form and organized in stanzas. Okay. Yes, I hope this is the definition where there is verse form, lines, stanzas, and then have rhythm and beats that create melody. This is poetry. And then, who is a poet? Poet. Poet, dear student, is the person, is the person who composes a poem, is the person who writes a poem. Okay? A poet is the person who composes a poem, or is the person who writes a poem. And a poet is the artist who writes a poem. That's what I come to say. Yes, the poet is an artist who writes a poem. Okay? Then when it is a female artist or composer of a poem, it is no longer called a poet, but it's called the poetess. It is called the poetry. Poetess when it is a female, when it is a woman, when it is a female character, when it is a female author, when it is a female poet, it is called the poetess. Okay? So, dear student, who is the speaker? Speaker or persona? In a poetry, we say the speaker or persona, the narrator, okay? The narrator or the voice which is created by the poet, okay? Who is speaking in the poem? In the poem. The speaker is someone who is speaking in the poem, the same as the person, the same as the persona. Who is addressing to? Okay? The speaker or persona. We have the persona, it means the speaker and the addressed. Okay? The speaker and addressed. Okay? Uh, yes. For example, if a poet wishes to lodge a complaint against irresponsible parents, they will create a speaker. A speaker here should be a child. Okay? The child will be put in a sad situation of either abandoned or neglected person to speak on behalf of such children. Okay? Yes, it means the persona. Okay? The persona or the speaker. The speaker is someone who speaks in a poem. The same as the persona. Okay? And in the persona, we should have who is speaking and who is addressed to. The addressed is someone who is being addressed. If you create a speaker who is a child, for example, who is complaining about his parent, who is not taking care of him or her, then the speaker is a child, but the address will be the parent. Okay? Okay, dear student. So we come back also to see, uh, yes, yes, line or verse. I was saying that line is the same as a verse. Okay? What is a line? Listen, what is a line? A line is a group of words in one line. Okay? In a poem. Hmm? A group of words in one line in a poem. They are called a verse. Okay, a verse. And like prose, poetry isn't composed in 10 sentences. Okay, line is a similar with a sentence in a prose. Okay, but line is poetry uses a line, and the line in a poetry known as a verse. It means a verse is the same as a line. A verse in poetry doesn't have to make a complete sentence or sense. In prose, sentence should have the full meaning, but for line or verse in a poetry do not have a full meaning. A full meaning. Okay, means a group of words. Okay, in one line in a poem is called a verse. Okay, and then let's go to stanza. What is a stanza? What is a stanza? Yes, check. A stanza is a group of lines or group of verses arranged together as a part of poem. Okay. Very often, a stanza expresses a single unified idea. Okay. And the stanza is compared to a paragraph in a prose. We don't say paragraph in a prose. We say, I mean, in a poetry, but we say a stanza. Why don't we say a paragraph in a prose? In the poetry, we say stanza. So a stanza is a group of lines. When you put lines together, they form what you call a stanza. Okay. So poetry devices. What is poetic devices? Poetic devices, dear student. These are literary techniques. Okay. These are similar with literary techniques used in poetry. It means they are literary techniques that are used in poetry, by which the poets convey their message and create sound and affect the reader's feelings and attitudes about the subject in the poem. Okay. For example, poetic devices also they are metaphor, simile, symbolism, personification, repetition, island, okay, alliteration, pan, and many more as you will meet them under different subheadings. So you will have the as lesson apart of poetic devices. But poetic devices are literary techniques that are used in poetry. So, dear student, let me go immediately to the subject matter. What are the subject matter? What is subject matter? The term subject matter refers to the content or idea or feelings being expressed by the poet. It means it is the content. What is the content? Okay, what is the content of the uh, of the poem? So it means it is like a summary. It is like a summary of the poem. Okay, it means who is the speaker, who is being addressed, what's the problem, what is the problem. That's the subject matter. So you normally know the mood, dear student. The term mood you remember, or atmosphere in the poem. Okay, you remember? Okay, it is the same. Okay, it is the same. The mood refers to the situation, okay, or atmosphere in the poem. Which situation, which atmosphere, which that's in the poem, expressed in the poem, okay. For example, when you have a tragic event, very tragic event, that time we will have sad, okay. We will have the mood which is gloomy and sad. But when we have about success story, people are there celebrating, that will be a happy mood or jovial mood, okay. But tone also refers to the feelings of the poet about the subject. This tone is about the poet who is writing a poem. Okay, when he was writing a poem, what was the tone? What was the feelings? Okay, what is there? Huh? Or attitude of the poet? What was the his or her feelings? Okay, this is the tone of the writer. This is for the writer. Okay, different from the emotions or feelings, which these emotions and feelings or attitudes, okay, attitudes refer to the reader. If you finish reading a story or a poem, what, how do you feel? That is the attitude. How do you feel? That is feelings. How do you feel? Okay, you maybe should have different feelings about the persona, about the speaker. Okay, these are called the feelings. Should have feelings maybe after reading, which is sympathetic, okay, which is pity, which is very you say which is sorry, okay. You have feelings which is sorry. So we say about the feelings of you as a reader after reading the poem. But the tone is the voice. How was the voice of the poet or the poetess of the writer of the poem? How was the feeling or she was a feeling when she was writing the poem? Okay, so maybe she may be feeling sad, critical, satirical, ironical. Okay, this is all the uh, tone that the poet or poetess should have when writing the poem. Okay, this was the uh, basic terms used in a poetry, and I was introducing to you the poetry. Please, dear student, bear with me and learn by heart with these basic terms, because it will be the, 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 the basic knowledge, the basic way. And when you are introduced to the other, when you will be in practical exercises, you will be remember these key terms, these basic terms, because most of the questions in a poetry are based on these key terms. When you don't know these key terms, these basic terms in poetry, it is hard for you. You read the poem, but you will not understand. But when you know normally these terms, it will be easier for you to progress, to make a progress in poetry. Thank you very much. This is Rainbow class. I'm teacher Fidel. See you next time. Thank you so much. Bye bye.